150. Oh yeah, 200. 212 and a quarter.
And that's more than $250,000.
By 30, Parker Schnabel had mined tens of millions of dollars in gold. But the success came with a cost few people ever saw. Long before becoming the face of Gold Rush, Parker was running crews twice his age and risking everything on massive mining operations in the Yukon wilderness. Behind the record-breaking gold totals were devastating losses, relentless pressure, dangerous setbacks, and the death of the grandfather who shaped his entire life. So how did Parker Schnabel become the most successful miner in Gold Rush history? And why has he admitted he still doesn't know what comes next? Join us as we uncover the truth behind what really happened to Parker Schnabel from Gold Rush. The childhood that built everything. Parker Russell Schnabel was born in a town of roughly 2,500 people wedged between the Chilkat Mountains and the Lynn Canal, at the end of a road that goes nowhere else. Gold mining was not a career choice for his family. It was the environment he grew up in. His grandfather, John Schnabel, had bought a placer claim at Porcupine Creek in 1984 and built it into the Big Nugget mine after undergoing triple bypass surgery and deciding he needed something to keep him active. John Schnabel was, in the words of his grandson, simply one of a kind. A Kansas-born World War II veteran who had been a bootlegger before fleeing to Alaska, entered gold mining in his 60s, and made it look like the most natural thing in the world. Parker started working summers at the mine at 5 years old. By the time he was a teenager, the distinction between family life and mining life had collapsed entirely. The mine was the family, and the family was the mine. When the Discovery Channel arrived to film what would become Gold Rush in 2010, John Schnabel was in his 90s, and the Big Nugget mine was the kind of operation that made for good television. A grandfather and grandson, the old knowledge and the young energy, and a family story wrapped around a gold story in the middle of the Alaskan wilderness. Parker appeared in Season 1 as a 16-year-old already managing experienced crew members. While most 16-year-olds were navigating high school hierarchies, Parker was telling grown men where to move equipment in conditions that required genuine expertise to not get someone killed. In Season 2, John Schnabel made the decision that shaped everything that followed. He handed the Big Nugget mine to his grandson. Parker was now running the mine, and John was the advisor rather than the boss. "Everything I know," Parker has said of his grandfather, "started with him." The education Parker received at Big Nugget was not formal. It was tactical, physical, and accumulated over years of watching someone who had learned everything the hard way and was passing it on without ceremony. Parker played varsity basketball at Haines High School and had originally considered studying geology or mining engineering at college. What he learned from John made the classroom version of that education feel secondary to what was already before him. The decision he made after high school is what defined his entire adult life, and it required betting everything he had on himself at a time when most people his age were choosing a major. So let's disclose the choice that made it all possible. The college fund bet that changed everything. When Parker Schnabel graduated from Haines High School, he had a college fund waiting for him. This was the money his family had set aside for his education, designed to give him options. He looked at the options and decided that the one he wanted was not available at any university. At 18 years old, he took the entire college fund and used it to finance an independent mining operation in the Klondike goldfields of Canada's Yukon territory. He leased ground from Tony Beats at Scribner Creek, a tributary of the Indian River near Dominion Creek, negotiating directly with the man known as the King of the Klondike, in a transaction that required him to demonstrate he was serious before Beats would even consider it. He was 18. Beats had been mining the Klondike since before Parker was born. The lease went through. His first independent season in the Klondike produced 1,029 ounces of gold, worth $1.4 million. For context, this was his first year running his own operation. He was using his college fund as operating capital. He had no institutional backing, and he finished the season with a return that most experienced miners would consider a very good year. The performance turned the gold rush narrative from a multi-crew ensemble story into something with a clear protagonist. Parker was the show's most compelling storyline because he was doing something that the audience could measure in real time. A teenager with a college fund and a mining lease, finding out whether the bet made sense. The answer, at the end of Season 4, was that it made more sense than almost anyone had predicted. The seasons that followed were a systematic expansion of what that first year had established. He moved his operation, leased more ground, grew his crew, invested in equipment, and pushed the scale of his production upward every season with the methodical discipline of someone who had learned from childhood that mining was not about luck, but about volume, preparation, and the willingness to move more dirt than anyone else. He developed his operation at Dominion Creek into one of the largest private placer operations in the Klondike, running multiple wash plants simultaneously and targeting season totals that would have seemed implausible at the beginning of the show. The growth was designed, season by season, by someone who understood the mechanics of scale better than people who had been in the industry for decades. By season 11, he had surpassed 10,000 ounces in a single season. By the time he was 28, his cumulative production had crossed 50,000 ounces. He remained the Gold Rush record holder for gold found in a single season until Tony Beats, in season 16, finally matched him. The competition between the two miners has defined the show's most recent chapters in a way that the original Gold Rush format could not have predicted. The teenager who took a lease from the veteran is now the veteran's closest competitor, and the gap between them on any given season is measured in hundreds of ounces rather than thousands. The professional trajectory was exceptional. The personal one was harder, and the first major loss came in 2016 when the man who had given him everything he needed to succeed died in his sleep at 96 years old. And the impact that had on Parker was shocking. Losing John Schnabel. John Schnabel died on March 18, 2016, from congestive heart failure. He passed peacefully in his sleep. Discovery Channel honored him with a special tribute episode titled Remembering John Schnabel, and Parker took to social media to write, "John lived a great life and was one of a kind. I am glad the world got to see an amazing man." The statement was measured in the way that Parker Schnabel's public communications generally are and was not inviting further emotional discussion. What it did not convey, and what Parker has since described in enough interviews to make it clear, is the scale of the absence that John's death left behind. John Schnabel was 96 years old when he died, which means that the practical mathematics of grief were ones Parker had been living with for years. A grandfather in his 90s is a grandfather whose death you know is coming, and you prepare for it in the way that you can. What Parker has described as the harder part was not the death itself, but the specific shape of the absence that followed it. The loss of the person whose knowledge, judgment, and experience had been the foundation of everything Parker had built, and who was no longer available to consult when the decisions got hard. "Everything I know started with him" is not a performance of sentiment. It is a statement about the source of the competence. When John was gone, Parker was running one of the most complex placer operations in the Klondike with the knowledge John had given him, which was both a tribute to what John had taught him and a reminder of how much of the foundation had been someone else's work. In a Facebook Q&A, Parker answered a fan question about whether he had any regrets about his relationship with his grandfather. His response was that he wished he had asked John more questions about his life before mining, about the bootlegging years, about the war, and about the decades before the big nugget mine existed. "He had so many stories," Parker said, "and I feel like I didn't get to hear all of them." That is the specific form of grief that arrives after someone very old dies. Not the shock of an unexpected loss, but the quiet recognition of everything you forgot to ask while there was still time. The professional operation he built after John's death demonstrated that the foundation had held. But the personal life that ran alongside it told a different kind of story about what it costs to be completely consumed by a single pursuit. The relationship that ended. Parker Schnabel's only confirmed relationship was with Ashley Yule, an Australian veterinary nurse who had also trained as a dancer and worked with an Asiatic bear rehabilitation program in Cambodia before the mining detour. They met in 2016 while Parker was in Australia filming Gold Rush, Parker's Trail, a spin-off series that followed him as he explored gold-rich territories around the world. Ashley joined him on the show and worked alongside his crew in the Klondike, driving trucks and washing gold as a functional member of the operation rather than a passive observer. Their relationship ended in 2018. Parker took direct and specific responsibility for the breakup. "I just never really made the relationship a priority, didn't make her a priority, and she deserves a lot better than that. At the end of the day, I do think she is doing what's best for her, and that's the hardest part of it. It's a real shame." The statement is notable for its absence of deflection. He did not blame the schedule, the distance, or the difficulty of the lifestyle. He said he did not make her a priority. The years since Ashley have not produced another confirmed relationship. Speculation about a romance with Tyler Mahoney, another Australian gold prospector who appeared in Gold Rush, Parker's Trail, has been consistently denied by both parties, who describe themselves as friends and professional partners. Parker's public description of his dating life in recent interviews has the quality of someone who has carefully considered the practical constraints of what he does and arrived at an honest, if somewhat bleak, assessment. He told People magazine in late 2024 that even explaining his job was a barrier. "I try to explain it in a way that doesn't sound like Mad Max. It's hard to explain without it sounding like some dystopian, insane world. I'm in the woods, and you're living in a fucking bunker washing rocks, looking for little shiny rocks. Then it makes dating incredibly difficult. They're like, 'What do you do?' I'm like, 'I don't know.'" The self-awareness in that description is characteristic of his public interviews. He is not romanticizing the difficulty or presenting it as a badge of honor. He is describing it as it actually functions, as an obstacle to the ordinary life around it. At 30 years old, Parker Schnabel is unmarried, has no children, and describes himself as effectively single. The lifestyle that produced everything he has professionally. The 6-month Yukon mining seasons, the remote locations, and the all-consuming operational demands of running multiple wash plants and a crew of dozens is not compatible with the kind of relationship that requires sustained presence. He has said he would like to have a family eventually. He has also said he does not know how that fits with everything else. He has not resolved the tension so much as acknowledged it and continued mining. The personal landscape has remained unresolved. The professional one has been defined by continuous escalation, including a current season that has Parker targeting records that would make his entire career look like a prologue. The $38 million haul dollars and the race against Tony Beats. Gold Rush Season 16 has been one of the most dramatic in the show's run, with Parker targeting a 10,000-ounce season goal worth approximately $35 million at the gold prices at which the season began. By the midpoint of the season, he had built toward that number with 4 wash plants running at Dominion Creek and the Golden Mile, including his new $1 million Golden Goose wash plant, nicknamed Gigi, and had closed in on 5,000 ounces. The season was also complicated by external conditions that Parker had to navigate, with the kind of operational flexibility that distinguishes his approach from that of less experienced miners. In January, wildfires in the Yukon, driven by lightning, created more than 90 fires across 250,000 acres, with some burning within 3 or 4 miles of his Dominion Creek camp. The decision to keep running or shut down was not purely a financial one. It was a safety calculation being made in real time, in conditions that the show's cameras documented with the kind of immediacy that live fire proximity produces. Parker achieved his 10,000-ounce goal, bringing his season total to a remarkable $38 million, in a close race with Tony Beats, who surpassed 10,000 ounces for the first time in his 40-plus years of mining. Parker and the veteran were neck and neck in the season's final weeks. The competitive dynamic between Schnabel and Beats has been one of the show's defining threads. Beats, who gave Parker his first Klondike lease at 18, is now competing directly against the operation he helped launch. The race produced some of the season's most compelling episodes and demonstrated that Parker, now 30, is no longer the prodigy he was introduced as. He is the peer. His operation for the current season has expanded to include 4 wash plants and the resources to acquire a $4 million D11 dozer, a piece of equipment whose cost gives some indication of the scale at which he is now operating. The Dominion Creek operation, which he has built over more than a decade of leasing and developing claims in the Klondike, has become one of the most productive placer mining operations in the region. He has also made strategic moves during the current season to position his operation for future seasons, including an attempt to take over elements of Rick Ness's struggling operation when Ness hit an impassable clay layer, a move that demonstrated both his operational opportunism and his understanding of what adjacent ground means for long-term production. The professional ambition has never diminished and shows no sign of doing so. But what Parker Schnabel has said about where all of this goes next is more uncertain than the production numbers suggest. Why the answer is more honest than expected. Parker Schnabel has been on Gold Rush since Season 2. He is 30 years old. He has mined more than 50,000 ounces of gold, run operations worth hundreds of millions of dollars in total production, become the show's most bankable personality, and launched a spin-off series in Gold Rush, Parker's Trail, that has explored mining territories across Australia, South America, and other regions, and built an operation that now requires dozens of employees and millions of dollars in equipment, just to keep running through a single season. Speaking to People magazine, he said he does not know what is next, and does not consider that uncertainty a problem. I look forward to the next chapter of my life. I really don't think that it'll be something where I'm like, "I'm done with adventures," he said. The phrasing is careful in a way characteristic of his public persona. He is not saying he will mine forever, nor that he will stop. He is saying that whatever comes next will have the same underlying quality as what came before it. His net worth is estimated at between $8 and $10 million by various sources, though the figure is difficult to pin down precisely because his income combines television fees, mining revenue, and the fluctuating value of gold itself. He has described a future in which he might pursue other kinds of mining or exploration beyond the Klondike placer format that Gold Rush documents. Parker's Trail has already taken him to territories where the methods and scales are different. He has expressed interest in applying his knowledge of production optimization across different environments. He has also described, with the same matter-of-fact honesty he applies to his dating life, the reality that gold mining is seasonal, physically demanding, and located far from the kind of ordinary life that most people his age are building. Gold mining, like most things in life, you get out of it what you put in. And if you put in a lot of hard work and dedication, you usually get rewarded, he has said. It is the philosophy of a man who has tested it thoroughly and found it accurate. Do you think Parker regrets the lack of attention he paid to his previous relationship? And do you think he can successfully separate his personal life from work? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.